Good. Flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Just to explain the mask, I came into work today and had a tip on my throat and kind of changed my voice a few times, but I don't think I'm sick, but I just wanted to be extra cautious to make sure that I'm available to go to the living class. So the first tonight for the regular session, we have Sarah Frankenfeld from Long County GIS and also our city engineer, Jeremy Schneider, to discuss our 2025 street resurfacing curb sidewalk program consideration. So I'm going to the bus first.
Before I start, I also wanted to introduce Gary, who's the city's new GIS technician. He's a recent graduate with a GIS degree from University of Vermont. He's been here about 6 months, is that right? Great so far. Really happy to have Gary on board. He's been doing an awesome job and he has done a lot of what I'm going to show you tonight. So, great. Really good stuff. Okay, so I think Jeremy and I were here just about a year ago, and at that point in time, over the summer and fall of 2020, we had done a cooperative project with AGMTC, Regional Planning Board, and Long County GIS to do an inventory of all of the city's pedestrian facilities, so sidewalks, curb ramps, crosswalks, as well as score all of the pavement on the city's streets. So we had Jerry and I presented the results of those findings, that process. We had a discussion about how we were going to use this data going forward to make decisions about paving and repairing sidewalks, curb ramps, and crosswalks going forward to help make more data-driven decisions. And so happy to say that we're doing that. So I wanted to just what we did is Mary and I worked over the past several weeks to very updated all of the work that we did the last couple of years so that we can make sure that we get current and up to date. And created a couple of dashboards, the initial dashboards that we put together were primarily focused on tracking that inventory process. But now we're moving into, maintenance phase of using this data proactively going forward to plan repairs. So there are 2 dashboards. These are public, so you guys are welcome to check these out, play around with the data. This is our pedestrian facilities, so curb ramps, crosswalks, sidewalks. Harry put together a nice README here, just kind of walking people through the use of this dashboard and defining what all the layers are. I think the mouse just died. Uh-oh. There's a battery sitting here. I'll swap it out and see what happens.
There's also the remote. Maybe we can pillage from that as well.
Maybe.
Oh,
Well, there's a couple extra, like they knew that they were having problems.
Okay, maybe third time's the charm. Hear me talk and I'll fiddle with batteries. Oh, that will work. Oh, look.
Does it?
Okay,
Fixed it.
good.
It's amazing.
I think it was a dead battery.
That makes sense.
So again, if you want to play around with this yourself, feel free. Read through this README. There's also some information here about the ratings that were done and what each one of these 1, 2, 3, and 4 ratings. These are DOT standard ratings for pedestrian facilities, going from 4 being fully accessible to 1 being not accessible, 2 and 3 in the middle. So all of these features are filterable by ward. So if you select a ward, you can see how many miles of sidewalk are in that ward, what the various ratings are for the features in that ward. One thing that was a request when we were here last year was to create an inventory of the locations in the city that do not have sidewalks. So we did that. Those are shown with dotted gray lines. So just to kind of give an indication of where there is potential to add sidewalks that are not currently there. And then another thing that Harry added was everything that was replaced during going all the way back to 2022. So these are the contracts that were awarded to replace sidewalks, curb ramps, repaint crosswalks during 22, 23, and then 2 different contracts in 2024. So if you want to be able to see what was done by a particular year, particular contract, you can just filter by that contract year, and those items will show up on the map. So we're hoping that this is helpful in decision making for priorities for the coming season. Any questions about?
So, what are we obliged to do under ADA accessibility for the? I know there's a transition plan that we should be addressing all the areas that do not have accessibility. And me, for my ward, I'm saying any discretionary thing is going to go off that list of making it accessible. I'd like to recommend to other council members that this is what we should do, because we're not presenting, even just looking at this, not presenting accessible facilities in a lot of places.
Yeah, that's a great discussion piece, and if we could hold on that for just a minute.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that once
Okay.
Sarah gets through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So just a word about navigating. This is also a new website that we put together, Glens Falls GIS Hub. So this has a variety of different applications relating to city facilities. Some of these are county-wide applications that the county maintains, such as the community map. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with that, as well as a bunch of different maps and applications that the county GIS has put together over the years, and we're using this as a landing space for city applications.
Sarah,
as
is
well.
that a standalone or is that connected to that a standalone website or?
It is a standalone website.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure Jeremy could share the link if it's not in your packet already. Also accessible through the county's GIS website as well. Okay, so moving on to pavement, very similar setup, although all we're dealing with here is one layer of pavement. Again, these are color-coded by rating. Again, also using DOT rating criteria. In this case, DOT's pavement rating scores go from 1 to 10. This link right here provides the details about what each one of those pavement scores mean. And again, they're filterable by contract, going back to 2022, by ward, by street, by pavement score. And so we can see the city's, most of the city's streets are in pretty good shape at this point. Anything 7 and above, I think, is considered decent condition. But these are scores by ward as well. Clicking on any one of these segments will zoom you to the segment, and there's also some detailed attributes, as well as the date that the pavement was scored. And then one additional item that I wanted to talk about was the nice thing about having this data in GIS. There's many nice things about it, but one in particular is that we can begin to combine layers to help make more informed decisions. In this case, we thought, wouldn't it be nice to be able to see the trees together with the sidewalks, so that when sidewalks are being repaired, trees don't inadvertently get killed, or if there are blank locations that need a tree, really nice to coordinate that whole process together. So we moved the city's tree inventory that was done by Davies, I think, right? Into a map with the pedestrian facilities and pavement. So all of this information is available together. I think this will be very useful for Jeremy in particular in planning projects, so that we can make sure that the tree commission is coordinating with the repair schedules. So this is 2D. If you click on any one of these trees, you'll get all the information from the tree inventory. The red locations are vacant sites, I believe, where trees could be planted. I also wanted to jump out and show this I don't have public facing right now. I may make this public at some point, but I just wanted to kind of show you the future of where things are going in the GIS world. And we'll see how good the Wi-Fi is. But one of the very cool things that we're starting to delve into more heavily in our office is 3D GIS. So you may have heard the term of it's especially a hot topic in the planning world now, about a digital twin. A lot of people have a difficult time interpreting 2D plan maps. Most people are much more familiar in an oblique environment like this, where we're looking at things at an angle, like how we look at them in real life. So this is a 3D representation of the city's tree inventory along with the sidewalk inventory. So we can kind of get a good sense here. poorly scored sidewalk, along with the little red dots here are vacant sites where trees are missing. So again, even though Jeremy is pro at looking at things in 2D, not everybody else is. So it's nice to have this this option to look at things in 3D. So we'll be moving towards bringing more and more data into 3D, as well as the sewer and water data, which obviously is below ground. So really nice to be able to include elevation data in that sewer and water infrastructure as we start building that out and adding it into the GIS.
Is it hard to, or is this the technology now that will take your 2D information and put it into 3D, or are you having to re-enter all that data some way?
So it is more both, it's more resource intensive from the computing perspective. It needs more memory to run something in 3D. And yes, it does. So in addition to collecting X and Y values, so how wide and how long something is, moving into 3D also requires collecting a Z value, so how high or below the ground something is. So it is some additional data collection as well. It's a little bit more complex than just 2D GIS, but I think the trade-offs are good, especially from, you know, a public perspective, I think, for the planning process. So if you envision potentially discussing some infill development in the city or a building proposal, you know, being able to kind of plop a model of that proposed building into a 3D environment like this and be able to visualize it from all sides, play around with vegetation, you know, siding materials, that kind of thing. It's just really powerful for decision making.
Sure, but the 2D, I guess what I was asking is the 2D information that you have, because it's just a new version of GIS, will it read the 2D information, or are you having to re-enter all that as well?
We don't have to re-enter it,
Okay.
but what we need to do, so for example, this is actually a good example. So this tree information, the cool thing about this too versus something like Google Maps, which obviously has some 3D capabilities, or Google Earth, is that in the GIS, this has the full set of attributes attached to it. This is all the same data that we were looking at in 2D. So I'm just displaying it in 3D, and what I did is just extrude the trees and apply a symbol type based on what the particular type of tree is. But here's one example of data that's missing in the 3D environment. So when this tree inventory was collected by the consultant, they estimated the height. So they said the height was less than 50 feet or the height was more than 50 feet. So I don't have an exact height. If I did have an exact height in this data set, I could actually extrude that tree to the exact height of that particular tree. So that may be data that we want to collect going forward in the field to make this a more robust data set. Right now, I'm just estimating based on kind of the standard height for that particular tree species.
Thank you.
Is it possible at some point to get the national grid work put in the sidewalk and street paving? I'm thinking as council people, if we're deciding what streets we want to recommend this year, it might be nice to know.
Yeah.
Because you call them and find out what their estimated projects are so that we don't waste our time suggesting streets that are going to be ripped up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, we get I think it was included in the supplemental package there, their 5-year plan, which is loose a little bit now, but I think we could probably add that as a separate layer, easy enough to make some of those decisions a little easier.
Okay.
Well, particularly when at least we can know when new gas lines were laid and stuff like that, so we know that road will never, should be touched again by.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to replace, like, my street, the gas lines are sidewalk.
Right.
So it's like, you wouldn't want to do sidewalk work and then 6 months later rip up the sidewalk.
Yeah, National Grid does not publicly share their core infrastructure data, but, you know, anything that they are sharing publicly with Jeremy, we absolutely can put in.
And we also, when we share with them what we're doing, then we say, okay, these are the streets we think. A lot of times they will look at that and they'll adjust their schedule too.
Correct.
But-
We do trade information, and there's been streets that they have had on their schedule that, you know, they learned that we just paved a year or 2 years ago, so they pushed their schedule out, so we weren't right back in there.
And we do that with water and sewer too, or if there's water and sewer infrastructure.
Well, this could be helpful for them too then, since this is public facing, they could go in and look at it and just make it much easier to coordinate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yep. You're welcome.
Appreciate your time.
Are you talking, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do some talk.
Do you need this anymore, or?
I don't
You
think so.
good? Okay.
So you want to refer to the packet, Jeremy, that the council, you guys have the packet that Jeremy put in?
Yep. So, yeah, before I start, I'd like to thank Sarah and Warren County for their efforts to help the city get their GIS program off the ground, or reestablished rather. And I'd also like to echo the sentiments about Harry Thurston. He's been a great addition to staff so far, and we're looking forward to continuing building our program. So with that said, I'd like to start a discussion about curbs, sidewalks, paving for the upcoming year. And if I could, just briefly, I can skip over that. We'll skip right to the packet. In the packet, on the cover sheet, I included a index of documents that to the council to try to aid in some of these decision-making processes. And I'd like to just briefly go down through those, and some of them are very obvious what they are. Some of them could use a little further explanation, so I'd like to do that real quick. Document number 1 is last year's street resurfacing list. Every street on that list was completed, so that was a successful endeavor. Document number 2 is a product of our GIS technician, and that is a map with it's got the last 3 years since we revamped the curb and sidewalk program, and up the city's investment in curbs and sidewalks. So there's 3 different years on there. They're color coded. I admit the line weights are a little thin, but you can see it. Also on this map, it's important to note we did include the proximity of the schools, just so.
Can I interrupt with that?
Yeah, of course.
Orchard has no sidewalk at all.
Correct.
And I know your egg wing is right there. So I kind of, worry about that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and similar to Councilman Lapham's
Right.
comment, give me a few more minutes, and then
That's okay.
I think I'd like
That's all
to.
right.
We'll get to that, and I think it's an excellent discussion to have, or to start rather. Next in your packet is last year's curb and sidewalk list for the full block lengths. These items were all complete with the exception of one in Ward 3, the infamous Goodwin Avenue. And I can share an update with you either now or some other time. So,
We can follow up on it
Yeah.
later,
Yeah.
Thank you.
yep. Similar to that, another map putting the last 3 years of sidewalk and curb work on here in relation to the schools.
all of this is the same, it's a printout of the information that Sarah has, so we can look at both, right? You can look at this, and you're definitely gonna be able to see the streets that we're doing as well, right?
You can, yeah, once, yes, that
The map.
graphic, yes,
Right.
yes. Document number 5 is a typical street section that just kind of shows some of the features that you find in our city streets, some of the obstacles that we need to work around when we do these projects, at the beginning from fire hydrants, light poles, street trees, and there's a host of other things that I did not show, but I listed some of them below. So those are good to keep in mind as we look at these streets to see, can we replace that sidewalk easily, or are there other things we're going to need to do to successfully get a new sidewalk in? Document number 6 is the National Grid 5-year gas replacement plan. So if anyone has any questions on that.
This is a spreadsheet, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Could you put that on SharePoint so that council can access it?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. So after the National Grid document, we have a list of streets for 2025 for consideration. You know, this list it's got the blue header on it. This list is a combination of past requests from the city council, you know, current requests from DPW or suggestions, results of frequent calls or concerns from residents. So that's how that list is preliminarily put together. And then lastly is the curb and sidewalk list. Again, from that large spreadsheet that Councilman Lappin just referenced, a lot of these requests are left over from years past that we haven't gotten to yet. And some are also driven by, again, DPW recommendations or constituent concerns.
Could
So,
we add to the resurfacing the number, so the grade that it has from the GIS?
yeah, we can put the current score in there.
Yeah.
Sure. And that'll also be accessible through the dashboard. You just click on it, it'll
Yeah.
almost tell you the same thing, but that's no problem. So,
Now, a question that's kind of related to what Councilman Lapham and Councilman Donahue have made the suggestion. As far as the sidewalk list is going, it's new information that we just added, which is the ones that don't have any. And so that would be the same too, that you're not in here including ones that don't have any sidewalk.
correct. On that current list, it's a replacement. It's not, I don't believe any of those on the list are for undeveloped sidewalks.
So could you, I hate to ask for work, but in that sidewalk list, so if I understand what you're saying, again, you've got the curb, sidewalk, and apron replacement considerations.
Mm-hmm.
So these are sidewalks we either haven't gotten to, sidewalks that you've gotten complaints about directly, or sidewalks that our staff have said, this street's doing pretty poorly.
Correct.
And so could you add to that the sidewalks that in by ward that have no, or the sections that have none? So that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be a huge list, but at least the council has all the considerations without their input in one spot.
Yeah, I think we can filter that through the dashboard to
And
populate
if
that list.
if I understand it correctly, what you want now is to ask the council to go and take and look and see if you've gotten any concerns about streets that aren't on this list, and we'll put it on it, and then put their score on, which is great. And then you also, on any sidewalks that you think are, you're really, Councilman Lapham, you said, well, also, I'm sorry, one more thing is, do you have the information about the school's current plan of adding sidewalks? Meaning if, let's say a certain street, John Street, doesn't, either needs repair or whatever, if the high school already has it on their plan to replace that sidewalk or repair that sidewalk, and we've asked AGFTC, because I know they were involved in that survey, would you at least find a way to indicate that in this list?
Yes.
Because we probably want to hold off on that if it's already being done.
Right. I think, to my knowledge, there is, I guess it's phase 2 or phase 3 of the high school work gonna happen this summer.
Right.
So work on Sherman, Quaid. I'd have to check on.
So you want to make sure it's not.
It's a great
public,
point.
right?
Yeah.
You don't want that to be one of the decisions you're making if you're already replacing it.
Right.
And then one more to add would be the tip. Jeremy just submitted the tip to AGFTC, and Western Avenue is included on that. So could you at least add that too and put tip so that we don't consider it?
Yeah,
Or that we at least understand that we've asked for federal and state dollars to consider it?
That one I do have on, but I will add the other ones that are being pursued through other entities or.
Great.
That's a good idea.
And then a long-term concern that the council needs to make some decisions about is Councilman Lappin kind of just suggested, I don't want to speak for him, that one priority could be, or should be, filling sidewalks that aren't there. And that might be very expensive, but certainly worthwhile. We also might rank it higher if it's near a school, right? But they also, I know that some sidewalks, that some areas that don't have it, some neighbors don't want it, or that the cost of it would take a good portion of the money to do one section. I think those are all things that, as the council comes back and looks at what they think their priorities are, you could also tell us about those areas, understanding that that is one thing for us to consider.
Yeah,
Right?
I think some, I don't want to speak for all areas that don't have sidewalks, but some of them, they're not there for some reason or some physical constraint. They may not be there, trees, fences, but that's not a blanket statement for the whole city, you know. So,
Right.
So
you kind of got to look at
you'd
it.
have to look at each area and get a good understanding of if we want to put a sidewalk here, you know, what is the big scope of work, not just the sidewalk.
And so if the council has, say, 30 days to tell you what they think, and we come back and we meet again, and they tell you what priorities they feel are important, we could also then start to look at, we should also look at the overall, when we were met a year ago, we had identified some things that were more on the non-accessible, if I remember correctly. So this is a question, a statement that is a question for you. If I remember correctly, we had a pretty good street rating, Sarah just kind of referred to it, and a pretty good sidewalk rating comparatively,
Right.
but a low corner
Yeah.
rating for accessibility.
That's correct.
So again, that's something that you want the council, as you come back with your priority streets you think. One option is to make corners a priority over streets. You might only do one street in an award, but do more corners. Or
Yeah, I think
less
that,
sidewalks and more corners. Or
just a reminder that the funding source for both street resurfacing and the curb and sidewalk program is the same. So,
Well, that's not exactly true, because there is other options that we can do with CDBG money to be able to, in say the 4th Ward and the 1st Ward, access that pot. And we just, one of the grant programs in CDBG is now we're getting another source of a grant for that, so we might be able to shift some priorities around and get some more money for those kinds of things.
Sure.
So that we have accessibility better addressed.
Yeah, and in those eligible awards, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
For
And
some that aren't,
limitations is where.
there
That's the
might,
point.
you know, it's just, if we wanna allocate a certain dollar figure to each
Yeah.
ward,
Mhm.
you know, do you wanna spend 50% on street resurfacing and 50% on curb and sidewalk work, or
Corners.
some other
Right,
corners?
focus on accessible corners,
Yeah.
right? Focus on a couple of streets that don't have any sidewalks, right? And corners maybe, and do less a regular sidewalk and less things, so, now I'll let you, speak, because I don't want to.
Could we also, run this by the Complete Streets Task Force?
No matter what happens, when you guys come up with your recommendations, the next thing should go to the Complete Streets Task Force, and they should say, okay, if these are the streets we've decided, and these are the corners, these are the plans, and they could say, well, we really think that if you're doing this, you should do bike lanes too. And then it might come back to the council and say, okay, that might add more, so to this street, you might get less streets done, but that is definitely in your, that's gonna go in front of them. And also then, also the tree commission
Correct.
would look at this, as you decide what streets and what corners and what situations are best, they should go to both of those committees for review and further consideration. It might change a few of the details, right? If a Complete Streets Committee said, we really think if you're doing the street, you should do this, it's gonna come back to you because that might add more money, and so you might have to prioritize that street over some others.
Right.
Fair enough?
Yeah, I think that was the goal of tonight, was just to start this discussion, get these materials in front of the council members, and 3-4 weeks from now, maybe
Yeah.
develop some of these lists.
Do you want us to, send some stuff directly to you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
We can,
Any thoughts or ideas you have, please
Yeah.
email them to me, and then also.
So, Jeremy, what's the time frame? I mean, you're saying 2-4 weeks for us, but then will that give you enough time to do all the other stuff that needs to be done?
It's cutting it very close.
So do you want a shorter window of time?
If that's at all possible to have in 2 weeks, that'd be great.
Thank you.
'Cause-
yeah, that gets us to the next council meeting to
I think we can.
Yeah.
run that together.
'cause-
Okay, so
No.
the 25th is our due date.
yeah, that'd be even better, because that gives us time to put the bid together,
Yeah,
run it,
Have discussions with other groups and
discuss,
so.
award contract, so we're hopefully
Yeah.
running by June
During-
1st
yes.
at the latest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, and at least we're doing it, the process is improved every year.
Mhm.
And this year we've got a survey to go with it, and you're getting input ahead of time. You can see what was done last year. Remember, for a while, the dip list from what wasn't done would disappear, and you'd have to remember, oh, I asked for this street, but I didn't get to it. So, I mean, thank you for following up. Thank you, Sarah, for helping us get all this, the work that we've done into it. I mean, I think we're in a better spot. It'd be nice if we had a month and a half, but at least we're doing it the right way. We could also, if the council can decide roughly what their priorities are, right? Then you can start to say how much, even, so I did speak to Pat Dowd, and so last year's money that was for rehab, that we do have a separate grant for,
Mhm.
it's about $100,000. So just so you know, that could be done in those lower wards, and so that you could add to the, I think what you're doing is starting with the CHIPS amount that is same as last year without knowing the total details. It looks like that the counties have asked for more money. The governor so far in her budget has the same amount.
Right.
Is that right?
I've heard there's been concerns about not getting as much, but from what I've gathered and talking to peers and colleagues is that it's not that we're getting less, it's just we're not getting more.
Has the cost of materials gone up appreciably or about the same as last year?
You know, maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna be a drastic jump from what we saw last year.
I know sometimes it is.
It can be, it
Yeah.
certainly can be, it all depends on, you know, who.
Depends on trade wars and materials.
Yeah, and who responds to the bids and what their workload is, and, so, there's a lot of wild cards, but, we've gotten it done the last 3-4 years, so, I'm looking forward to another successful year.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions about this or, materials provided, you know, feel free to email me, call me, I'd be happy to.
Years ago, I did a complete thing for all the sidewalks in the first ward. I thought it would take me a year to find where it is now.
No need, I have it.
If you look at this document, it's got all these head Donahues running right down.
Yeah. So
It didn't disappear.
Right, so I took that handwritten list, Ed, and I put it in that spreadsheet for everybody, so, but if you want the original one, I have it too. Okay.
I'm sure with another year I'll find it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
With that, we'll open the council meeting for public comment. Anybody who wishes to address the common council, please come up to the microphone, give us your name and address. Good evening.
Hello, Mayor Collins, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
My name is Pema Reed. I live in Queensbury on 35 Evergreen Lane, and I have a few words I wanted to say about the South Street Pavilion, just an update, and then I have a copy for you all. And so, hello, Mayor Collins and Common Council members. Nice to meet you all. I'm Pema. I live in Queensbury. I appreciate Glens Falls for so many reasons: Crandall Library, the Farmers Market, Larac Earth Day, the 4th of July celebrations at Crandall Park, and much more. Love you. A brief history: I've been on the Town of Queensbury's Climate Smart and Clean Energy Committee for some years and attended a few of Glens Falls CSC, CEC meetings, thus getting to know Jeff Flagg, Ben Latham, Diana Palmer, and Diane Collins. And Town of Queensbury and Glens Falls worked on similar energy efficient projects with the help of New York State grants. Our mutual efforts proved quite advantageous and environmentally sound in benefiting our communities. Now, a few words about the South Street Pavilion, constructed 25 years ago with a New York State grant for the Farmers Market. To me, this is a historic gem. Ken Tingley said he wouldn't really call it a historic gem, but I do. And it is important to save it and resurrect it elsewhere in Glens Falls. Now, however, despite Jeff Flagg's efforts over 2 years to relocate the structure, given the estimated cost of $110,000 to disassemble, transport, and reassemble the 180-foot-long structure, no interested party chose to take it on at the time. That meant that once Bonaccios started phase 2 construction of a 5-story apartment complex on the former Farmers Market site, the entire parking lot would be razed and the pavilion would be demolished. And I believe they've started phase 2. When I learned that, I could not stand by and watch that happen. I contacted Ken Tingley, who wrote an update on the pavilion status in his front page Substack. There were some good suggestions in the comments by Councilman Bob Landry, Ben Driscoll, and others. Initially, I thought it would be ideal for Crandall Park to locate near the amphitheater for covered seating for games and events. but Elizabeth Hogan kindly explained to me that the Crandall Park Beautification Board already has their master plan. So I asked Jeff Flagg for his help and advice, and he willingly pitched in. I decided to go to the shirt factory to meet owner Eric Umkoff and asked him to reconsider the idea, since it would be a great venue for summer events at the shirt factory. Eric basically said no, he'd been through that, but nevertheless, he said he'd think about it. The next morning he called and said he could rearrange plans for the mural garden to include the pavilion, possibly in 3 sections. Wow. Jeff advised Eric on the next steps. Planning and Codes located the original construction plans for the structure from 25 years ago, and soon Eric had the copies. Jeff then put Eric in touch with Bonaccio, and the project director, Steve, met with Eric and offered $5,000 towards his costs of dismantling the pavilion, I believe most likely in April. Eric Umkoff has asked the city of Glens Falls for $10,000 towards the cost of rental equipment and crew to disassemble the South Street Pavilion. Eric would cover the remaining costs to transport, store, and then reassemble the structure in sections by the shirt factory and mural gardens. I want to say kudos to Eric and to Jeff and Mayor Collins, all you council members, and everyone who has worked to save our pavilion. This is a true community success story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, I'm sure Eric would be more than happy to answer them. Who should I give this?
Thank you. Are you going to test? Well, clerk will take your time. Thank you.
Thanks for your advocacy.
Yes.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Any more public comment?
So yeah, Pamela's right. When she came to me, I had pretty much put the pavilion out of my mind here. I'd inquired about it multiple times over the years, but I had kind of moved on off of that, and she was very persistent, nice but persistent.
She's been advocating.
What's that?
She's been advocating for it for several years.
Yeah, and I said, well, let me sit down, let me see if I can be flexible with my plans, and I can rearrange things that I had planned out and accommodate that structure. And as you know by email, I've asked to see if the city can help financially at the amount of $10,000 to help with that move. And Chip suggested that I come to the meeting here tonight, so here I am. And I'm more than willing to answer whatever questions anyone has. If anyone has any questions about this, I do have in my hands, yesterday Bonaccio sent the contract for the transfer of the pavilion. So I've got that to sign off on, and basically set a date with him to get over there and dismantle that thing and move it. And the other thing that I wanted to come and talk about, which is a meeting we had a couple weeks ago with the clerk's office and Jeff Flagg and Amy and Chip, is mobile food. And I know there's been a lot of work with the city in terms of kind of iterating on trying to figure out how to make that fair for everyone involved, fair for the city and fair for all the different events. And I think we're getting close. And I think when I sat down in the meeting a couple weeks ago, my initial thought was with, the $100 for, a mobile food that's going to have a fire inspection sounds great. And I welcome having the fire department come and inspect anyone that's using propane. I think that's a great idea. I do, as I've put forth in a couple of emails that you've probably seen, I do question whether we're making this, part of this is in response to one of the other events, kind of questioning where they wound up last year. And I'm wondering whether if we have it at $100 per year for people like farmers that don't have a fire inspection requirement, if we're inadvertently, or the city's inadvertently going to put a higher burden on the farmers market than you're kind of anticipating. Because, and I'm not going to speak for Tom. Tom's here, Tom can speak for himself, and Tom can speak for the farmers market. I mean, this was just a thought I had, kind of sitting down and saying, well, if you've got 30 guys selling vegetables at $100 a piece, that's $3,000 that those farmers are paying to the city versus about $1,000 now. And if it were more the $25 for people that aren't using open flame, that would be $750, plus they've got 5 or 6 more that are using open flame at $100 a piece. So that would wind up being about $1,250 a year to the city versus, which would be more in line with what they're paying now. And again, he can speak to that, rather than having a couple $1,000 increase. And I don't think any of the people that cook with open flames, those are the ones that, if anyone's going to make money, those are the ones that have the potential to make money. I personally, the farmers at our markets, I just let them set up for free. I'm like, hey, thank you for growing the food so I don't have to, right? And you guys set up for free. And I'm not suggesting that the city do that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of those farmers don't make huge amounts of money, If they were, they wouldn't be setting up at the farmer's market in the first place to try and hawk a few lettuce or carrots or something. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Okay?
Thank you.
Do we have a deadline for when the pavilion needs to be moved, or will be torn down?
So I was told by Steve that it's sometime later in April is when the deadline is. Now I'm going to, once I sign this, I'm going to get with him and try and work out what a schedule is. I mean, my hope is to start at the end of this month or the beginning of April at the latest, and then it's maybe about a 1-week project, provided we have good weather. It's about a 1-week project to disassemble it.
When would be a good time for you to know that the city is committed to allocating the funds?
Sooner rather than later.
So is there
it's
to expedite that now? Could we,
Yeah. Bring it up under new business,
Yeah.
and you can tell me whether you want to do it or not. Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I'll bring it up tonight. It won't be voted on tonight, but if you want, it'll be on next.
Yeah.
Right.
If you
Well, we'll bring it up in new business.
right,
Yeah.
and then you can tell me what you want, and if you want it on the agenda, it will be on the next council meeting.
That sounds
Do you feel in the time, because I saw the contract today, to Councilwoman Palmer's question, do you feel that you can get in front of the planning board and get approval to do the other pieces of this that you can?
So in terms of in terms of reassembly, what I have to do is, in talking with Philip, it's got to go before ZBA first, because I don't know, but I think because we're a light industrial zone, I think the code for light industrial was written more for the developments down on like Pines Island, where they wanted it to look a certain aesthetic. So the setbacks are fairly large all the way around. But nothing that's light industrial on that end of town even comes close to hitting any of those setbacks. Never did. But, you know, that was all constructed in an earlier time, right? So, you know, that's part of the argument for relief under that. So, if, you know, I still have to talk to Fred Holman about his thoughts on terms of exact placement before I go before ZBA. But as far as I know, I think I've got a little bit of time if I'm going to get it in for the next one. I think the 17th might have been the due date for.
You might be able to do a.
So it would be. I would be putting in for the next. I've got to put in for the 7th.
An area variance first from the ZBA.
Yeah.
And you would have to go before the planning board for site plan review.
Right. So and Philip said I'm going to go before ZBA first, and then I'm going to miss the planning board for next month. So it's really like June before I could even really go before planning board. So really, this whole thing has to come down well before that.
And that's my question.
So I can't do anything as far as really reciting
You
it
can't
or getting
reassemble
approved.
it until you have your approval,
Yeah,
so you'll
yeah.
have to store it somewhere.
Yeah. So that's not a problem.
You're
We can
okay.
store it. Yeah,
Okay, I just want to
absolutely.
make sure
Yeah.
you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Many of you I know, of course. I'm Diane Collins, a Glens Falls resident, and I'm here to talk about the pavilion. They say in the lobbying world that one voice represents 1,000 voices. So today, think of me as 1,000 Glens Falls residents asking you all to consider helping with financing to save from destruction this beautiful Glens Falls Farmers Market Pavilion, a true landmark of our area, and as Pema describes it, a historic gem. So really that's about all. I think history means a lot, and to keep a work of art, which is what this construction is, would really be a statement from the council acknowledging the value of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tom Wells, president of the Glens Falls Farmers Market, and maybe a lot of you might know me. I'm here to talk about the permitting. I know that at this point, there's a lot of things in the air. I know in the past, it's been, for the farmers market, it's always been $1,000. And I'd like to see that stay that way this year because of the added expense of we still don't know what's gonna cost for us to use the new market building in the future. So I'm not sure if there's gonna be a fee for that or anything like that. So I would really personally, with everything that's going on, to keep our part of the fee schedule, because there's only 4 food vendors in the whole market. Everybody else is a farmer. So you only have a few drink vendors, and then you have 2 food vendors, which is Dickinson's and Barb and Tom's. So it would be advantageous for us. We have no issue. We would give you the DOHs that you need or whatever permitting you need, and just keep it at a flat $1,000 for us until we can, find our new home in the new building, if that's where we happen to go or whatever. So I just wanted to put it out to the board. That's just where I'd like to stay. And if that's possible, it would be great. And then maybe at a future date, we could rediscuss of what you want to do for food vendors or whatever that goes. Okay?
We've tonight the council has in front of them a proposal to make it $100 for the food vendors and $100 for peddlers, which would be the non-food vendors.
Right.
That would be for the year and for any events that are happening, whether they're there. And there is no fee. The $1,000 contracts would go away.
Okay.
So we're not charging you to be the Saturday tenant of that market.
Okay.
So we would not be charging you at all.
So in other words, where in the past we were at $1,000 now, if we have 45 vendors, it's gonna go to $4,500.
No, it would go $100 to those vendors, and they register, and they can go to any events they want, and there would be no fee for the farmer's market.
Right,
So-
but what I'm saying is that all my farmers that are there and the food vendors would go from where it was, we as a farmer's market, paid for the vending or the rent of that.
Yes.
So in our fee schedule, so now it's gonna go from $100 is what we had a fee, now we're gonna have to figure out a way to have all our vendors who don't do any other things in the market or in the Glens Falls area as far as food vending is only the Glens Falls Farmers Market. So I feel it's an unfair burden on the farmers who are trying to make ends meet with going to the farmers market to have to pay $100 for it.
Okay.
So not counting our fee ourselves for the farmers market.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cassie Deason. I'm a resident of Queensberry. My children attend Glens Falls schools. I'm in that pocket of Queensberry resident and Glens Falls School District. My address is 19 Broadacres Road. I'm coming here today to express major concern with the traffic around Glens Falls Middle School and High School campus. On Friday of last week, my kids typically walk to school and home from school. Mind you, Glens Falls is a walking district, no buses. Last Friday, the 7th, my son had to be picked up from school due to an appointment. The gridlock on Grant Avenue heading east was abysmal. Literally about 4 to 5 cars wide on Grant Avenue. You can imagine the rage that was building up amongst those drivers of those cars at dismissal time for the middle school and the high school. I know this is very similar at Jackson Heights and Kensington because I've spoken with friends, with kids, and relatives with kids those age, and it's equally very unsafe, not pedestrian friendly, not traffic friendly. Additionally, especially in the winter time, when there are events at the high school that draw large crowds, our boys basketball team, varsity team, for example, if you take a drive down Sherman Avenue, you have cars parked laterally along Sherman Avenue, facing the school campus. Those vehicles are not only on the lawn, where you have, for example, many memorials of deceased people of the Glens Falls community, very disrespectful in my opinion, but very unsafe. I can't imagine pulling onto a lawn and then wanting to back out from that space when it's dark in the winter time because I want to attend an event. Mind you, all of these instances that I've given, there are no crossing guards, no signage, crosswalks are not entirely visible. There's no support to help our walking district. Additionally, as you are all aware, and as I've mentioned, Kensington, Jackson Heights elementary school kids, the middle school, high school kids, one of our most vulnerable populations. I'm very involved with the school board, my husband the same, we are very involved with the district. I attended the school board meeting last night and expressed frustration and major concern. I cannot even tell you how bad the scene was there last Friday. We are steps away from an accident, hopefully not a fatal one. I have talked at the school board meetings and with Dr. Dengler. She has informed me that the city has agreed to do a traffic study, although it's not entirely clear what extent or where that will encompass. And I was told signage and enforcement are a city responsibility that we continue to ask for support with. The bottom line here, I will be the squeaky wheel from this point forward. Nothing says we support our students and their educational experience like a dangerous commute to and from school. It is unacceptable for a walking district. We can absolutely do better, and we should do better soon. I am one for taking action steps. I did suggest that there be a new traffic committee of sorts with district and school personnel and city leaders to address this issue, come up with solutions, and implement them as soon as possible. I am going to circle back with Dr. Langler, and I want to make known that this is a very, very, very unsafe situation and environment and such a disservice to the students and children of our district.
I've got a couple of things just to follow up with. I have brought this up before to the Public Safety Commission. At one point, there was, I believe it's still the case, there's a staggered dismissal, but they put all of the middle school children out toward Grant, and there was no crossing guard there then. I don't know if there is now. I know at one point the principal was going out there dressed as a pylon to kind of be like very visible that this is going on. And I know that the Public Safety Commission had decided after about like 6 months of going back and forth, because initially they said the police came and said they saw no volume problems. And so I went there exactly when it was let out, and I said, I saw, somebody's gonna get hit. That's what I saw. I did a count of people coming out and how many cars were there, and saw the same thing you saw, where it was like 4 cars wide, and there's also the sidewalks in there are in a poor state of repair. At that point, there wasn't even a sidewalk that continued down to the end of the block. They were walking through mud. So the city has addressed extending that sidewalk, but there's still one property that doesn't have a sidewalk in it that needs to be addressed, and that needs to have accessibility features. And I would say that when I go home, I'm gonna bother Jeremy with a couple of places right around by the school for having better handicap features and better sidewalks, because it's right by the school. I think there's a lot of people who drive, I know people who live close by that drive their kids to school to drop off because they don't feel that the sidewalks are in good enough shape or safe enough to have their children walk down. So I totally hear everything that you're saying. I've been trying to do something with this for 3 years. So I'll give you my card.
That would be great.
And you can follow up with me because I want to, I have the same mission you have.
Yes.
And this is in your ward.
Yes, this is my ward.
So also just, if Christine, Dr. Dengler didn't give it to you, there is a study that's been done. They're actually in the action plans of it. They've decided there's different times that they're starting with. They got streets that they're fixing in the beginnings of that plan, what they're doing. They've got three levels to it. They are on, I think their second set of action plans has to do with putting in more sidewalks, and they've got to get consent from the neighbors who some don't want it. It also calls for a one-way street, the plan currently, that was again created in this calendar year. So they're calling right now. And so the first thing I'd like to do is share that plan with you so that you can weigh in, because I know they're asking other parents too. So I'm surprised that they didn't explain that to you, because right now they're calling for a permanent one-way change on
Clayton Avenue, I believe.
So
yes,
anyway,
I'm privy to some of the information that's been discussed for improvements.
Yeah, it's a full plan, and I think that they are asking for input because they're implementing pieces of it. Okay? So please.
I will be glad to follow up with you, and my goal is to make sort of more of a bridge between the district and the city.
Also, Queensberry councilman representing the other side of Western has met with the city. I wasn't at the meeting because it didn't match my schedule, but we're looking to do some street and sidewalk improvements on the Queensberry side as well, and to put some crosswalks to funnel people in safely that are in the Queensberry side, but the Glens Falls School District, such as so.
Yes, I've been involved with some of the Queensberry supervisors for that purpose as well.
Yeah, so we met with the residents, and we walked the thing, we put it in for the tip for all of Western Avenue, but the Queensberry's got to hopefully address those residents are not Glens Falls residents, Queensbury residents. A lot of residents don't want sidewalks. So that's a difficult situation. But we also have two.
Clearly though, we're talking about putting sidewalks in the public right away.
Yeah.
We'll have a conversation with them, but we don't have to have their permission.
Or the town does.
Queensbury does, we can't just put a sidewalk on someone's yard,
We're talking about the public right of way.
not in the city.
We can address that. You know, we're trying to talk to them to get their buy-in. It is included in our TIP plan with Queensbury. And we also have 3 different studies. Jackson, can you help me remember, Jeremy? Jackson, Kensington, and Big Cross are currently, AGFTC has agreed to pay for us to do those. So at least we can let you know where we are, and you can make other suggestions as to what more to be done.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any further comment. We've got voice vote, committee reports, excuse me, thank you. Committee reports, Councilman, oh, sure, sorry about that.
I just wanted to say, Sean Palladino, third Defeater Bend, but the people that left public comments, I've learned so much in the discussions between them and you of how the city works and just how much advocacy really does work.
Sure.
And that's great to know as I slowly learn how the city works.
Great.
But I'm glad that all the political stuff that's happening federally does not matter because our community is still strong.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Sean.
thanks, Sean.
Committee reports, Councilman
No report.
Clark, sorry, Councilman Donahue. Thank you. Councilwoman Palmer.
The Building and Codes Committee was supposed to meet last week. We had to reschedule because our department staff was unavailable at the last minute. I just have an email out asking for some agenda items from staff, and when I get that, I'll reschedule and I'll let you all know.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Lack.
I had to move the technology committee meeting from March 4th to March 18th, and I just adjusted the time for that from 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m.
Thank you.
And I just was wondering when we would have the budget committee meeting scheduled.
Soon.
Under voice vote, there's resolution 1 is a resolution to approve the minutes of the February 25th, 2025 regular meeting of the Glens Falls Common Council. 2 is a resolution to approve the 2024 City Cemetery Annual Report. 3 is a resolution to approve the clerk's monthly PVB reports. And 4, a resolution to approve the Controller's Office manual check distribution report. And 5 is a resolution to approve the Historian's 2024 annual report.
Before we go to vote for this,
Sure.
I would like to know, there was a line for $150,000 for funding the Urban Renewal Agency.
Yes?
And I was just wondering what that money was going to be devoted to.
I can ask the Urban Renewal to reach out to you.
Yeah, I haven't heard Urban Renewal Agency doing something in quite some time.
Sure.
But I realize this is also pretty much stuff that goes back to last year, so I'm not going to get in the way of it, but I would like to have more
Understand what the
about that.
intention is with
Yes.
150.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Under roll call vote, are there any items that the council would like to pull for discussion?
I would like to pull number 22, and I'd like to pull number 12.
I just have a question on 11. Some questions about 19 and the 21. 20, yeah, so if we pull those as well.
Under roll call vote, number 6 is a resolution to increase revenue code A009999-1589, miscellaneous public safety income by $400, and increase A23120-4352, MV repair parts by $400. 7 is a resolution to increase revenue code A009999-1589, miscellaneous public safety income by $354.66, and increase A23120-4312, clothing allowance by $354.66. 8 is a resolution to increase revenue code A009999-1589, miscellaneous public safety income by $9,240, and increase A23120-1100, police department overtime by $9,240. 9 is a resolution approving the Community Development Housing Rehabilitation Application, CBG-11, in the amount of $35,950. 10 is a resolution to approve the Community Development Housing Rehabilitation Application, H23-09, in the amount of $26,345. 11 is pulled, 12 is pulled. 13 is a resolution to increase A9999-2680, insurance recovery by $11,747.27, and increase A23310-2400, electric, highway street equipment by $11,747.27. 14 is a resolution to increase revenue line A009999-1589, other public safety aid by $6,500, and increase A23410-4404 EMS training by $6,500. 15 is a resolution to transfer $16,555.63 from 2024 budget line A23410-4404 EMS training to 2025 budget line A2341044-04 support ongoing training in the fire department. 16 is a resolution to approve CDTA installation of a point of sale system to then Navigator cards in the clerk's office where the city will receive vendor payments for the service. 17 is a resolution to approve the nomination of the following members for inclusion on the city's ethics board. 18 is a resolution to approve the outside dining permit renewals 2-2025 and 3-2025, which allows for the placement of chairs and tables at these businesses for the period from which June 1st, 2025 through May 31st, 2026, while in compliance with PROAG regulations for public access on the sidewalk as shown in their approved layout. 19 is pulled. 20 is a resolution to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with Larry Klug to permit driveway access to real property tax map number 309.16-7-2.1 as attached. 21 is pulled. 22 is pulled. 23 is a resolution to approve the warrant. We have a motion for a roll call vote, please. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer?
Yes.
And Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Thank you. 11, Councilman Lappin, you want to discuss?
Yes, I just wanted to, I just had a question about QuickBooks with that. Is that part of our stack for accounting?
No, QuickBooks is a CBG program.
Okay, I thought it was, okay, so
Yep.
never mind on
Fair
that.
enough.
Yep, fair enough.
Okay. So 11 is, I'll do that one first.
Sure.
So 11 is a resolution authorizing the City of Glens Falls Community Development manual payments in the amount of $1,968.33 to pay for a portion of the Community Development Director's salary and to purchase checks to be used in conjunction with QuickBooks for the city CBG program. Do we have a motion for a roll call vote?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer?
Yes.
And Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. 12 is a resolution to approve mobile food unit license and peddling soliciting fee is scheduled as follows. Comment?
I want to say, first of all, I really appreciate the work of the clerk's office on this. And I appreciate the outreach that you did meeting with all of the various groups. At the last council meeting, I had asked how did all the groups feel about this? And maybe you didn't hear from them till after, but what I was told was everyone was on board. And so we're hearing some other comments for the first time tonight, and we got some ahead of time in email, so I just wanted to have a chance to discuss those. I did see in one of the emails from Mr. Unkoff that he had raised a question regarding charging the $100 to both the people who use Open Flames and the people who don't, and it became a legal question that our city clerk referred to our city attorney, and I didn't see a response, so I was just wondering if you could clarify that.
The fee has to be reasonably related to the work being done by the city. And I was told by the city clerk's office that they're the ones who came up with $100 fee and felt that there was a rational basis to establish that rate.
So,
I wasn't asked to respond. I was told that Mr. Unkoff was raising the question.
Megan's email just said, I'm not an attorney,
Right.
but Karen copied here is, so I just didn't know if there was an answer,
Sure.
and I was just curious, because I think that
The fee charged has to be reasonably and rationally related to the cost incurred by the city. And the clerk's office is the one who did the analysis and came up with the $100 fee.
and initially that did,
Reduction of.
It went from $700 a year to $100.
but reduction doesn't address the question, which was is there enough work behind this to justify that expense? Like in the case where there's an inspection that's being done, you can easily make that argument. When it's somebody who's selling books or something like that, or vegetables that don't require any kind of propane heating or anything like that, that is a different level of complexity.
Well, there is work when the clerk's office does this.
It's not just people with propane, they have to get Department of Health certificates, liability insurance, those things all have to be verified by the clerk's office. So the clerk's office is the one who did an analysis and came up with the $100 fee, feeling that they could justify that and that it was rationally related to the work that they had to perform.
The difference also, if you don't mind, the
Yes.
difference for us too with mobile food trucks versus the temporary food permits, and as far as the fees concerned, obviously now that we would be offering a much less annual fee. Mobile food trucks are allotted an annual permit from DOH. Temporary food, they are not. So they actually have to apply to DOH every single event that they still want to go to in the city, which in turn means we would still honor the $100 annual fee. However, every time they do want to attend an event, they still would have to come to the clerk's office and get a permit for said event, because they do actually still have to be permitted per event that they would do in the city of Glens Falls. Because DOH wouldn't offer them an annual fee if they're considered a temporary food vendor and not a mobile food truck. So that was also a part of it as well, where any of their events that they did want to attend, mobile food truck, we would give a one-time permit. Anyone else, we would have to, which is fine, continuously throughout their year, we would have to give them each individual permit for each event they would want to attend, which we could do ahead of time if they had the permits ahead of time, or, as they get the permits from DOH, we would of course provide them prior to the event.
you're saying that's what we would continue to have to do, or that's?
We would still have to do that because the temporary food vendors aren't allowed to get a DOH permit for the year. That DOH will only give them a permit per event that they go to within the city of Glens Falls.
Okay.
And as such as like Thursday nights, for example, they do umbrella like Thursday night specifically to one. That wouldn't be like, they wouldn't need to come for every Thursday night. It would just be umbrella, but any other events separate that they would want to do, they would still have to come to the clerk's office and get a permit as well.
So a pain point that was brought up for the farmers market is that it is a considerable raise in the cost to the farmers.
Well, so when we
So
started.
I would wonder if we could maybe table this for the farmers market until next year.
Well, it's the, at
Well,
least
and
one that, at
legally,
least
the
one I
answer,
have the.
legally, the answer is no, then we're going to be charged with what's under our code, and now you're differentiating between two classes of people seeking a permit within the city.
And if you want, we can table this and I can have the clerks, have Megan and Emily come back and explain to you, but let's not forget the reason that we were starting to
Well,
look at.
we were told last meeting that the farmer's market was on board.
They were.
So now we're hearing something else, so I would like to.
Sure.
That's the only reason I pulled it, because I did ask last meeting, have you talked to all the groups? And I understand that maybe some people have approached you after, but.
The clerk's office didn't directly meet with the farmer's market. We were told that they were okay with it. But the collaborative and UNCOF, from our perception, that it was.
So had we been told at the last meeting that there were some issues that had been brought up by the farmer's market or others, I would have done my research and talked to them so that I could make an informed decision. But since I thought there were no issues, I didn't do that, and now I'm hearing there are. So I wouldn't mind if we could just table it till the next meeting so that we just have a chance to. Yeah.
Right. The object was to treat people equal, and there were several groups that were coming to us. We knew that people weren't applying. We had stopped we were asking the newer contractors, like Mr. Unkoff was providing one level of information that was great. We had stopped asking, not to their fault, but we had stopped asking the farmer's market for it. We started thinking about what's a fair rate is it $20 an event? Because as they were adding more events, both of the other organizations were adding events, and the farmer's market was too. We're looking at maybe $100 per event, or per event night was a fair rate. And then we were realizing that we would end up, I had told the farmer's market that we wouldn't raise the rate, and we didn't want to raise the rate, and we were thinking of waiving the entire, this was a way to waive the entire contract and allow people to meet the registration process, and they could go to each event and then work with those event organizers. So it was never to raise that at all, but I think we should call them back in and bring those concerns and let the clerk's office bring it back to you next week.
Again, I really do appreciate the clerk's office work on this. It's not that. I just want a chance to vet the concerns that we just learned about tonight. And I was curious, so you're saying you did meet with the farmer's market previously, and they did say they had no problem with it?
At least that's what it was put to me, that Jeff had met with Tom, but I'm now seeing Tom, please, we'll just wait. We'll let you meet with Megan and Jeff and get a clear understanding. We'll let them bring those concerns to everybody. That's great. You're welcome.
The only thing I wanted to say is that it might have perceived that we were in agreement, but when we had talked, we didn't have an opportunity. It was very much in the air.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't clarified that it was going to be 100 for both the food vendors and that at one point. It was just something that was kind of in the air, and I didn't hear everything that was going on.
Gotcha.
So that's the only reason why I'm raising my hand.
No,
it's not
it's
anything
good.
to do with you. I just wanted to make sure it's clarified.
No, we're good. Right. That's great. We want to hear about those concerns. We want to do something that's fair. It was about what is fair from one organ. We had 4 different contracts, and we were treating them all differently, and we didn't know. We thought this was the easiest one, but now that we have concerns, we should bring it back. We're not in a hurry. You continue to have all your events. We'll figure this out in a way that works for everybody, and then whatever we work with, we'll get a contract or signatures or whatever the licensing is. We're okay. I don't want anybody, I know Eric had events coming up real quick, or maybe you even had one last weekend. We keep doing what you're doing, okay? We don't want to hurt anybody. We want to treat everybody equally, and we felt we weren't, and so this was the first option. So I will just table it, come back with some more information, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We definitely don't want to hurt anybody, all right?
For the clerk's office, just as a directive, how are we approaching permits that we're getting right now is a problem, because we
have to apply the code
outside those current fees then.
You have to apply the code that exists.
I just want to make sure that we're.
Councilperson Palmer to table. Is there a second?
So
Well,
The,
let me
the
understand.
no,
what
there
you're
would be
saying.
no fee. Well, let's just assume that we're gonna have the $1,000 contract, and if not, we'll go back and we'll charge fees. Right? Does that make sense? Go, yes?
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm not, what, the thing is that the farmer's market doesn't start until May 1st.
You're okay, but
So,
behind you.
For me,
Yeah, you're
like,
okay.
I'm okay if whatever's gonna happen.
Eric, please just register your people. We won't worry about the fees right now. We need them registered so your Department of Health and everybody's taken care of.
And they have been, and they're beginning their
That's great.
DOH certs to the clerk.
That's good.
And
And we'll either,
whatever they do,
yeah, we'll either, oops, sorry.
We're not gonna have anyone serving food that hasn't been vetted by the
Good.
clerk.
So we'll make sure we're following that rule, and we'll either implement the contract and ask you to pay it, or we'll implement whatever we're doing, we'll go back and get the fees.
However it works out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Second.
So, a motion to pull the resolution, table the resolution, thank you.
I'll second.
You know, a second, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Ledford?
Yes.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer?
Yes.
And Councilman Wetzel?
Yes.
Thank you. 13 through 18 is passed. 19, we had questions about resolution 19.
Yeah, I had sent something to council and to the mayor's office about some recommendations for encroachment permits. That's the only reason that I pulled that, was just to see where we were with that. I didn't get any responses from anybody.
Jeremy, Phil and Jeremy, after they met with you, they have a series of, I believe that we're talking about those, is that the encroachment?
I'm talking about beyond that specific thing. I had recommendations.
Yeah, for future encroachment.
I don't know if you saw it.
Thank you.
It was in my
Yes.
drafts folder.
We'll bring it, we actually have a 3-page document that we'll share with you, and then we'll meet with them and try to implement both. Can I ask you, I don't know if we got you the message, but we could not there was a link you sent us to a form. None of us could open that link. If you could resend it in another way so we could look at it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, here, actually, I've got that right here. I don't know if you want to share it with my copy.
Sure, but I'll find the link, right? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is it, so do we have a motion for resolution 19, which is a resolution to approve the encroachment permits number 6, 2025 through 11, 2025, based on the approved layouts and in compliance with ProAg regulations?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Ledford?
Yes.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer?
Yes.
And Councilman Wetzel?
Yes.
Thank you. 21, resolution to approve a request to set a public hearing proposed local law on March 25th at 7 p.m. to amend the city code, the Parks and Recreation dogs, based on a recommendation from the Rec Commission, and authorize the city clerk to post a notice for a public hearing.
So this is just something I came across today. I was listening to WGFR, and they had, they have ads on with their public service announcements, and it was for getting your, pet spayed, and it was like by 5 months. So this law actually reads, by 4 months you need to have your your dog registered. But part of the registration is you have to have a proof of rabies vaccination, and rabies vaccination is not recommended for a 4-month-old dog. And this states in code that it needs to be by the time the dog's 4 months old. So what I would like to do is pull this, research the age for when rabies vaccination, and it's different by weight of dog about when to do a neutering procedure, a spay or neuter, and usually, according to my wife, who is a vet tech, that is when, at the time that the neutering or spay happens, that is when you get the rabies disease vaccination. So I realize this is for dog parks and just to extend that bit, but I noticed when I was reading this that this is against recommendations from veterinarians.
Gotcha.
So I'd just like to follow up on that one.
Could we ask you to burden
Yes.
your wife
Yeah.
with those?
She gave me
recommendations?
something, I've got a link to share, I will follow up with it after the meeting, but I'd just like to table that until we have a
Sure.
chance to address
To bring it
that
back.
and have the actual professional guidelines.
Okay.
I'll make this second.
Roll call.
Table. You got it.
So we're tabling it again. We've got a first, we've got a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman
Yes.
Lechler, Councilman Donahue,
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer,
Yes.
and Councilman Michael.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see, 22 is a resolution authorizing the mayor and Glens Falls to sign a contract with CT Mal for the preparation of Northern Border Regional Commission Catalyst pre-application not to exceed $3,000 to prepare and submit an application. The city is authorized to proceed. The fee will not exceed $2,800 to be covered with the available economic funding under the previous approved city budget. Question?
Yes, so when I saw this on the resolution, I was curious about the funding source. So I went and looked at it, and I saw that the pre-application was due on March 7th, which is before today. And so we're approving a contract to pay someone to do the pre-application. So my question is, did you already authorize them to do this work, or did they not get it in time?
I honestly, I don't have the answer to that. I certainly didn't authorize it ahead of time. I'm assuming either they got an extension. I believed it was due at the end of this month, but I don't remember every contract. So, are you okay with? Let's see. This is
The
to.
resolution says that CT Mail submitted a proposal dated February 18, 25 to prepare a grant application, including a pre-application and separate full application. So you're authorizing $3,000
The payment
to prepare
towards
and submit a
preparing.
full application.
Gotcha.
We're also authorizing, though, $2,800 for the pre-application.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that pre-application was already due. So I'm just confused about,
Maybe he's done it and he's just submitting the funding or the bill for it.
it just brings up a procedural issue that I think should be addressed, because I don't think we should be asked to approve things that were, like, what if we said we didn't want to approve it, but someone's already done the work? What would happen in that situation?
And then we wouldn't pay him. But
We
I don't
shouldn't
see
be
that.
getting
Sure.
resolutions to approve things that are passed, that the work is already done. And then
Agreed.
I just think in general, we have an economic and community development committee, and I know like at the county and other places, the grant process goes through committee. So somebody comes and says, here's a grant we want to apply for, here is why we want to apply for it. They let us know if it has a match, and how we're going to pay for the match. And so I just wish we would vet this a little more, so that we don't just get a resolution like this without a lot of information. So for example, I also was looking at the grant, and there is a match requirement, and I don't know how much we're applying for. So when I prove that we're applying for this, I don't know how much money I'm saying the city may have to spend.
Okay.
That information isn't in the resolution. And also, when I was looking at what this grant funds, I saw that it funds water and sewer infrastructure, and I know that we have so much water and sewer infrastructure work that could be done, but we're applying for this to outfit the market center.
Mhm.
So if this had gone through a committee process, I might have questioned that. It seems like the water and sewer work is more of a priority, and also I'd like to understand how much taxpayer money is going towards the market center building, because if we do authorize this, we're paying $2,800, and we're going to be paying whatever the match is, but we don't know what that is because the full amount isn't in here. So that is taxpayer money, not DRI money, and I just think we need to be more informed what we're agreeing to before we're asked to agree to it.
Okay, so we didn't get the equipment grant that we put in, and we were told to apply for this so that we could get the equipment. The equipment and the match is all in the current budget. So if we don't get this grant, or we didn't get the last one, then we've got a budget for all the money for the equipment is in this, is in the approved budget of the DRI. We're trying to make it budget relieving so less of the city is, but I can get you those details, and you're welcome to do them. And so,
I just want to understand what you
sure.
said. You said it is in the budget for the DRI.
It is.
So are you saying that the council's authorizing us to spend? It looks to me, I mean, it doesn't say that in the resolution. It
So
says
we're
to be-
authorizing, we're writing a grant so that we can use it as budget relieving and not have to pay the entire equipment. So we got over like $1 million between the equipment of all the DRI, both the Market Center and Market Square. And we're trying to get $500,000 covered in this grant. We tried with the last grant, and it got denied, and DOS said, you should apply for this, and so we're applying for that next grant.
So this would be interesting to have in a committee report, that we're seeking this to get, we're getting none of that because that committee never meets.
I mean, you just said it was a $500,000 grant, right? I didn't know that.
Okay.
I mean, it's not in the packet. That's all. I just.
You're asking for more information, and I'll get you some more information about the grant and about what we're applying for.
Well, I just don't think we can, in good conscience, approve a blanket. I mean, we don't know how much the match would be. We don't know how much we're applying for based on what's in here. And again, the deadline that you're asking us to approve.
We're asking you to approve the writing of the grant, and the pre-one has been done, so we were asking for $3,000 for the pre-application and the application. But if it's not clear enough, I will take it back, and we'll get it, and he'll submit it, we'll figure something out.
Does it make sense to you what I'm saying, though, that we're being asked to approve spending for something that's already happened?
It's
The deadline was March 7th.
the pre-application is due March 7th.
And that spending is in this resolution, so it doesn't make sense to me that we're being asked now to authorize something that already had to have happened. It seems like we were somehow bypassed. We should have been asked ahead of that happening.
I think that, again, I will have, the Economic Development Director will pull this, and we won't pay anything, and we'll get you the details, or I'll have Councilman Clark get the details from the Economic and Community Development Office and share it with you, and we'll see if you feel like passing it at the next resolution. Okay?
Okay, and just a request that in the future we, just be careful about this and get us the information we need to be able to make an informed decision.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Yep, I think you were, and you passed it, and we didn't get that grant, and we were resubmitting it, so I do appreciate, it's not in there, and so I'm not saying it is, I was trying to help you to understand why it was done.
Does everyone else recall that? Am I the only one who doesn't recall?
That we were trying to apply for a grant to pay for equipment?
No, I'm just saying none of that is in here, so there would be no way for the council to take what you're saying into consideration. It's not written that way.
I would just say, second what you're saying, we need to know information in order to make sure that we're voting on something in the financial interests of the city.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Palmer, motion to table, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
Yes.
And Councilman
Yes.
And that is that. Under, we have
3 motions to table.
3 motions with table. And new business, Councilman Clark.
I have none. Old business? I have none.
Old business, sorry. Old business, Councilman Clark, you have none. Councilman Donahue, do you have any old business, sir?
Well, this isn't really old business, but
Is it new business?
no, but what happened recently with an open dumpster. And a lady trying to get clothing out of it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why there would be any open dumpster with clothes in it. I can understand the dumpsters we have, you have to push it up and in. You can't, you know. So I don't know why they would have an open dumpster.
Let me interrupt you, and I'll ask you to speak to Chief Smith, and I'll read a statement from him.
And that was
Just a moment.
horrendous, that before.
Councilman Donahue, I want to help you to understand. Go and speak to the chief. We've got an explanation of what you've seen. There's three documents that have gone out from City Hall, and those are all we can say about this investigation.
Okay.
Okay?
Do you want to read this?
I guess now's a good time, so let me read this into the record from our Chief Smith. Regarding any police investigation, it's imperative that we find the facts of the case and disclose them as we can verify them as facts. It is my opinion social media may have some correct information, but often social media has more misinformation than truth. With this being said, the police department has put out 3 separate press releases with regard to the death investigation of an incident that occurred on March 5th into March 6th. I'd like to caution any elected official or city employee to refrain from commenting on this investigation or any investigation with the hope that not adding to the misinformation that already exists. I believe that it is our duty to get to the facts, and I believe that the same to be true about not commenting on hearsay and rumors. There will be future press releases with more facts as we continue to investigate this tragedy. I would urge all to be patient and let the police department continue with this open investigation. Regarding Chief Smith, I'm going to give that to you. I'm only to put into the record, please do. We're in new business, Councilwoman Palmer.
Are we old?
I'm sorry. Old business.
I have no old business.
Councilman Lapham, old business.
I want to just go over the right-of-way issues on South Street. I know that this is in process right now, but I just wanted to go over some recommendations that I have ultimately, but also to just kind of spell out what I've been doing in the past couple of weeks. It actually started a week ago, after the conclusion of the last council meeting. I walked down on South Street on my way home, and I came across the facilities that were not PRO-WAG compliant. We had, I believe, 2 councils earlier had approved with the caveat that it was that there be PRO-WAG or public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. So I sent an email out. Here are the deficiencies that I came across. This was after I had notified the mayor right after the meeting, and then on Thursday after the meeting, I notified Buildings and Codes. I never got a response from either one. Buildings and Codes told me that he was having a personal crisis during that time, and that's when we had the missed meeting as well for Building and Codes that Council Member Palmer referred to earlier. So as I come back on the following week, I called up the mayor, said this isn't right. The mayor told me that it was fine. He'd had several people come over and look at it. We had a back and forth about that. Ultimately with that, I was left with I don't need to respond to your emails or to your calls. I'm just saying from my perspective. And so I went, and then on Friday, the mayor got staff over. We looked at it together. We walked through also, Councilmember Landry was there. So Jeremy was there. Philip was there from Building and Codes. And what I came across were these following deficiencies. One, the developer had no familiarity with public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, so he didn't even know what to speak on with that, and has not been presented that even though it's part of the, not easement, but encroachment permit. Number two, there's not adequate signage in the east to west direction. So if you're walking from City Hall and being led across that road, there was nothing to indicate that, even as of Friday. Number three, the closed off section on the South Elm Street segment needs a ramp. This was something that Jeremy pointed out to me, that they need to have a temporary ramp put so that if you're coming in a wheelchair or with a stroller or something like that, you'd be able to get from there to the sidewalk, to across the street, etc. And number four, the chain link fencing is so far out in the road that it's actually pushing traffic into the other lane. That was witnessed by everybody who was there. That needs to be wider. Those fences need to be further away from the road to allow traffic to stay in lane. Number five, the stop sign visibility is inadequate. There's netting material on the chain link fence that prevented people from seeing the stop sign. And in addition to that, I think that it would be a good idea to have a flashing beacon to kind of indicate that this is a stop sign, because there is a large amount of impediment to seeing that sign. Number six, I don't see any combinations at that site or at the DRI construction site across the street assisting people who have visual impairments. And that is part of the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. So I recommend best practices going forward. The city should provide the permit seeker with the rules or for public right-of-way accessibility guidelines or a link to that. Nearby residents, businesses, and advocacy groups such as SAIL should be notified when an encroachment permit is being considered as best practice. We should have, I asked for the temporary flashing beacon as I had that under the recommended best practices. And also, number four, can the Board of Public Safety and Complete Streets Task Force weigh in on these encroachment permits and say, I know there's a number of different stakeholders that look at the encroachment permits before they're brought to us. I think those are two parties that should be have a voice for ensuring public safety and accessibility. And going forward, I would like to all encroachment permits to be reviewed on site by city staff after it's been passed to assure compliance. It's not enough to say that there's that it's subject to pro-black guidelines. If we need to have something to follow up on it, because this has been a repeated problem every year that I've been on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. New business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
Councilman Donahue. Councilwoman Palmer.
Yes, first of all, I really appreciate the research and the work that you did, Councilman Lapham. I also, I had many calls from businesses on South Street who were upset about the way the sidewalks were blocked off and, you know, all kinds of things that were negatively impacting their business. And I do think it's important that we make sure that when we approve these things that the stipulations are being enforced. And on a more happy note, though, I was trying to think of something I could offer to do to help the people who are being impacted. And I spoke with several of the business owners, and we came up with this idea to do a night to bring attention to the South Street businesses. The goal of this event is to bring attention to South Street restaurants that have been impacted by the ongoing development projects that we all hope will strengthen the community in the long run. These businesses invested early in the neighborhood's future, and while construction presents challenges, they continue to serve as vibrant parts of our community. While the work will be completed in the next year, they need our support now. This event is a way for all of us to rally around them and show that we appreciate and value what they bring to Glens Falls. So all of the restaurants on South Street have pulled together We're going to do an event on March 20th. It's next Thursday, and they're all offering some sort of special, a drink special, a food special. And the collaborative discussed it, and they're on board because Nancy, who runs the collaborative, Nancy Turner, was telling me the collaborative was actually formed at the time that the traffic circle was going in and local businesses were being impacted then. And so this is a perfect fit for a collaborative initiative. So on March 20th, we're hoping that people will go down to South Street and support the restaurants that are there. And there's some restaurants, there's some pubs. They're all offering specials, and you may have to walk a little bit. You know, parking is not that available on South Street because of all the construction, but there are several other places that you can park, and I hope the community comes out and supports our businesses on that night. In addition to that, you can also go to the Collaborative's website to see all the lists of specials and things like that. Supervisor Turner and I will be having our 3rd Ward Community Forum that same night. It's from 5:30 to 6:30, and it's at the Bell House Inn. And then we can head over to South Street after that. And I should have brought this up under old business, but I did have one other item. I had sent an email and I didn't see a response on it. So last year, the Building and Codes Committee worked pretty hard on addressing snow removal. We collaborated with Building and Codes, we collaborated with DPW, and we had public hearings, we took public input, and the council unanimously passed a resolution. That resolution authorized Building and Codes to let DPW know if there are repeat offenders who don't shovel, that we can contract out for somebody to come and shovel for them, and they will be presented with a bill. If they don't pay that bill, it'll get added to their tax bill. Now, this isn't just for someone who is a little bit late or makes a one-time mistake. It's for people who don't make an effort at all. And so we put that tool in place last year, and at our last council meeting, we had a big discussion about what should we do about snow removal, and I'm just wondering why we haven't used that tool that the council gave the city.
I don't, is that,
That's a question.
Phil has sent you a report.
Already responded.
But I don't, go ahead.
So we didn't put it out to contract. We have contracted with somebody to get through this year, and Philip told you what he's done. And so now we're putting it out to contract, so we have the contract ahead of time next year.
Okay, I did see that Philip responded, I think today, right?
Yeah.
That was I think it was a couple weeks ago that I had sent that email. But in general, I also don't think it's necessarily, I think the staff should be directed by the mayor and the mayor's office.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important, so.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Councilman Lappin, new business.
Still wanted, I know after the last meeting, you had provided me with a list of some of the impacts from federal aid, and I was kind of researching outside that, and everything that I was seeing was that there's way more potential impact. So I'm gonna do a little bit more research and share that with you, because the amount of funding that trickles down to the city from the feds is more than what was outlined in that. Because it seemed to be mostly the CDBG was the only thing that you had mentioned.
Well, it all depends on if federal dollars actually ends up affecting the state.
Yes.
Then there could be more.
Yeah, that's the kind of impact that I'm looking to understand more fully, especially if we ever have that budget committee meeting.
Gotcha.
Also, I got a letter from Andrew Vitale, and he asked me about it, if I could read it. It's more about something for a proposed bicycle and scooter sidewalk ban that it may be going before the Board of Public Safety. I forwarded it along to Chip too, but I also told him, he said he couldn't make it to the meeting, so I told him I'd read his letter into the record.
Thank you.
Dear Councilman Lapham, my name is Andrew Vitale, and I live at 58 Ninth Street in Glens Falls. I'm writing with concerns about a proposed ordinance the Board of Public Safety is considering, which would ban bicycles, scooters, and other mobility devices from sidewalks in the city. Before I consider submitting public comment, I wanted to run my concerns past you as a sounding board and hear your thoughts. I follow city politics as closely as I can, mostly through YouTube media uploads, since personal commitments make it difficult to attend in person. That's how I recently watched the Board of Public Safety's discussion on this ordinance. I appreciate your independence, forthrightness, and willingness to go against the grain when needed. That's why I wanted to bring this to your attention before the next Board of Public Safety meeting. While I understand the intent is pedestrian safety, this ordinance doesn't solve the real problem, and instead it could make things more dangerous for people who rely on bikes and scooters to get around. Glens Falls doesn't have safe, dedicated bike lanes, so banning bikes and scooters from sidewalks means riders, including kids, students, and workers without cars, will be forced into the street where the real safety risks come from cars and speeding drivers. Pedestrian safety matters, but this ordinance ignores the bigger issue. Our streets prioritize cars, not people. What's especially troubling is that this proposal seems to be based on anecdotal complaints rather than crash data. Laws like this are easy to pass but rarely repealed, meaning the city could permanently restrict mobility based on perception, not actual risk. If the city truly wants to improve safety, shouldn't the first step be reviewing crash reports to determine whether sidewalk riding is actually causing significant harm? There's also a real concern about how this law would be enforced. We've seen in other cities how vague ordinances like this can lead to unnecessary stops and interactions with police, often targeting certain groups more than others. If safety is the goal, why not focus on lowering speed limits, enforcing reckless driver laws, and creating safer infrastructure instead? Some of the frustration behind this ordinance comes from the concerns about kids riding aggressively in the streets. But this behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's the result of a lack of safe places to ride, hostile interactions with drivers, and a system that prioritizes cars over everything else. Even adult cyclists experience punished passes, honking, and road rage for simply trying to get around, imagine what young riders face. Instead of just cracking down on their behavior, the city should be asking, why do they feel the need to ride the way that they do in the first place? If Glens Falls had safer streets and designated bike spaces, there wouldn't be as much conflict between drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. If sidewalk riding is a concern, there's a better approach than an outright ban. A clear rule requiring bikes and scooters to yield to pedestrians would ensure sidewalks remain safe while making liability unambiguous. This would protect pedestrians while allowing safe movement for people who rely on bikes and scooters instead of forcing them into the street. I'm not lobbying for such an ordinance, but I suggest it as an example of a softer action the city could take instead of a ban. I urge you to keep an eye on this ordinance before it moves forward and to consider the broader safety and social concerns beyond just sidewalk use. Do you share any of my concerns regarding the planned ordinance? If so, what are some reasonable next steps? I won't be able to go to the next Board of Public Safety meeting in person. Is there a way to submit written comments? Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Andrew Vitale.
Thank you. I printed that out and I put it on chip so we can share it with the Board of Public Safety.
Excellent.
Okay.
And just piggyback on what Ed was saying earlier, I know there's been communications that didn't come from the police over the weekend that was saying, that were coming from the communications office. There was a release on Saturday.
Of my letter?
Yes.
Yes.
So are you going to?
With the police department.
That was with the police
Yeah,
department?
sure.
Because it did not say that.
It had my signature on it, but it was.
Yes, it had your signature on it.
With the full support of the police department. I would never submit anything without it.
Well, at any rate, there are a lot of things that are circulating around. And I'm with Ed Donahue that this is a really terrible incident, and the response has been very slow in coming, and that is only stoking this story. It's been, it's traveled outside of Albany. It's been people's feed. It's a New York Post article, and the way that it's going is just going to continue to inflame response. So just what Ed was saying exactly.
I would expect the fire company to show up, wouldn't it?
They did.
We did, that's how we got it.
They did.
That's the police, no, we got it.
No.
Police found 2 a.m. the police saw a glow. I'll tell you what, I'll review all that information with you, okay?
And there was no outreach to anybody on the council about any of this. It was, I was seeing it from, communications from the communications staff and from something from the mayor's office, from the police office, and then something from the mayor's office. But there's no contextualization going on, and I think that the council probably deserves a little better than that.
Is there, let's see, any other, I have no business, wanted to, if the council, we reached out to the county op tax. The $100,000 for events is not appropriate according to the op tax people, but we could use some of the 55 to 60,000 that we annually get at the op tax money. Is it the council's desire to put a resolution, to see a resolution for $10,000 from that op tax money on the next council agenda?
Are you talking about for the pavilion?
Yes, sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Do we have, I think everyone here would support that, right? Why don't we just do it tonight?
Yeah.
If it's
It has to be
money-
unanimous.
No, if it's money, it has to be on the paper. It has to be ahead of
Yeah,
time.
sorry about
Unfortunately,
that.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So we can, if you're interested, we'll put it on the council.
Yes. But
We got you. Is there anybody who is not comfortable with that?
Thank you.
Great, I'll put it on the agenda. Okay. The only other new business I have is Happy St. Patrick's Day. We'll open up back for public comment on the in front of the council. Anybody wishing to address the council? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Have a great day. Thank you. Stand adjourned.